Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together.
I'll join the team, be an X-Man.
We are the future, Charles, not them.
What do you think, I'm stupid?
You and I are not so different.
You can't keep denying what you are, man.
Because I'm the best there is at what I do.
You, me, we're exceptional. The power of the sun in the palm of my hand. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero.
Plague, war, famine, morality doesn't even enter into it.
I've heard these arguments before.
Think about it, hero!
You are watching
Move, Throw.
a Marvel Crisis Protocol podcast.
I am Charles, also known as Omnis.
I am Danny, also known as Irish Like Rock.
So as I've been editing these like video podcasts and such, I noticed that I almost always rotate for the intro, which then I'm trying to center myself. I'm like, why do I look off center?
Why am I over
because
here?
I'm always move. I always move like during that part.
Yeah.
And then like throw myself out of whack.
Like little tape to keep me within like a segment, so
Yeah.
I stay within frame, right?
Well, the plus side is for me the background, right? Like I should be centered with the
sure.
bookcase, and so like I always see that. But
Well, this is where I have a lopsided background. That way,
Yeah.
I can just move
Yeah.
around. But
exactly.
asymmetrical,
Well,
whatever.
Danny, we have MCP news.
We
you
do.
want to tell the viewers / listeners what the news is if they haven't seen it?
That I'm free of choices. I can just stay the course and do whatever I want. I mean, comedy of all comedies, right? Instead of having to make a choice is made for us, right? So we have a delay in the release of updates and cards. So the issue I had with what do I choose and waiting is no longer a problem. You just do whatever you want.
No
baby.
longer a thing that you got to worry about.
Yeah. Which is good in some ways, right? Because now I started digging more into like I'd been spending the last little bit thinking about the list, and now this sort of just makes choices easier for me more than anything.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, I just make the choices, go with it now. There's no sense of worrying about what's going to happen in the near future. Just believe.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I the same as when they announced that it was going to be in July, right? I was thankful that they said it, right? So we weren't thinking every day in June, well, when's it dropping?
right,
When's
sure.
it dropping? And so I appreciate that they've realized that it's not coming out in July, and rather than have everybody in every Discord being like, "Is it today? What about
Is it
tomorrow? When's it going to be?" I don't like that high and low of waiting for 10 o'clock as to whether or not it will be announced. So I certainly appreciate them at least recognizing that for whatever reason it's not happening, and so that part I like.
Yeah, I mean, it is good. Information is good. I think it's just hard having delays back to back,
Yes.
and getting excited and hype cycles down. We're so out, baby.
Yeah,
Ain't that
yeah. Not much we can do. I do think it's interesting because there's boxes coming out between now and like early August and such. And they had designed all of these right with so that each repack could have the updated cards.
Yeah.
And we've already seen some release, right, that have updated cards in them. And I don't want to talk much about the Guardians box because it's wonky territory of NDA stuff, but like somebody spoiled it, right? But there is an
But
errata
we're
card.
not going to.
Yeah. We're not going to get into it just because, AMG does send us stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was someone that AMG sent the stuff to or who spoiled it, but it had a changed card in it. And so it's logical to determine that some of these other products are going to have changed cards in them. And that is going to be interesting where we have this little meta possibly where there's changed cards for some characters, but
legal
not
is what's
everyone.
available in your region, right?
Yeah.
That's what I guess is going to happen here.
Well, what would you do? Like, so box comes out or whatever, and now there's like one or two more characters that have health updates. I assume you play with those updates, right? There's no reason not to play with the
So you
other
would
ones,
basically
or do you go?
like that's what's like your box being released basically sort of opens the floodgate that it's legal in your region because you could purchase the model and the updated card. It becomes like the weird issue where someone's playing with an old card and someone bought a new box, got a new card. Which card do you use? Because you physically don't own the new card. You just know what the new card is. But I feel like most people would be pretty understanding of that one. The issue is like tournaments and stuff and how you want to adjudicate that. Like official ruling would be, hey, whatever you can buy in the store is what you can play with.
Yeah, well, like for instance, there's now the question. So the local GT, for me, Evergreen, right? That's mid to late August. It's like August 22nd. So probably out by then. But
Fine.
There's definitely going to be boxes that come out before then. Do you use just the new errata cards or none of them, or like there?
I would say you'd keep going with new releases up until the day of.
Yeah,
right? That's basically how every other event has done it at this point. Is that as long as it's before like the day of the event, right? Like just go wild. And plus, at this point, like they're coming out, the new models people are purchasing. Like it feels bad to buy models and be excited about them, and then be told you can't use the card you just bought. Right? Like that's
right. That's what would be the most weird, right? You can't. Are you going to tell someone who just purchased that model that their card is wrong and that is the only card that they own? Right? Like that's certainly not a situation.
That's well with me.
You have to play a worse version of this card that we know is not going to be the actual version of the card any day now.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that'll definitely be interesting. And so but I have nothing but honestly, I have a lot of sympathy for Atomic Mass Games. I don't know exactly what's going on, but that's just like, this cannot be the situation that they want to be in.
Well, it's not ideal from a press point of view, right? Like you want people when they see
not
press
ideal is a nice way of saying that, Danny.
I'm concentrating, baby. There is and also like back-to-back delays, because essentially if you were to announce a second delay, you wouldn't have announced the first one. You'd try to go all the way back to August. So there's some hope that we're going to make July. Presumably the complication is pretty large and difficult. That's why they're trying to work around it, right? And it's sudden, right? Because you would have known about that in June if it was like something that you expected to become an issue, or expected to be an issue, I should say. Because it's better to be cautious in press releases than overplay your hand, and then you're in the situation where it just looks like you can't run or manage projects.
Yeah, and in general, the situation is just a tough spot to be in. Because I'm definitely one of the people who always feels the big change on the horizon. Like, I remember a little bit before MCP came out, I was tagged in to work on some of the errata for War Machine, because they were like changing some of the tier list / theme forces and like what to include. And there was a lock and load between when I worked on it and when it was coming out. And that really drained my excitement to play.
Yes.
Definitely wanted to, kind of get into the next thing. So that's a tough spot.
I think it makes
and I
it
see
hard.
why people are drained for it. But it's weird having like the new Crises drop, which is super exciting. Yeah. But then feel like you're kind of stuck in a limbo.
I think it's going to be very difficult for the August timeline, because that's where there's events, things start like really hyping up in the August-September timeline, and then knowing what to play and feeling very focused, right? So I think a lot of people were sort of, hey, we'll just kind of mess around and do stuff. And now it's like, well, what do you focus on if you know things are going to change in August? But then again, you don't really have a day, so you go back into like this whole circular problem.
Yeah, now I'm trying to like, when is NashCon, right? Because that one would be before Second Wind.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that would suck. That's always been kind of a classic.
I want to say there is something in August.
Yeah, August 13th to 16th. So it's the week before my GT. So that's in a dangerous slot, right?
Yes.
Where even if you could get the errata that week, right? Like that's a non-crazy thing. And then you go, if they drop the errata on like the Wednesday before NashCon, are you that puts the, you know,
Yeah, baby, we're all in, right? We're doing it. It's just,
yeah, I mean, I would be
it's one of those
all in, but, like,
situations where it feels so bad. Like, again, it puts you in a conversation where it's potential for you to get blown out of the event, not because you didn't practice or do well, because something literally got changed underneath your feet the week of. It's like, well, how do you prepare for that? Like, I don't know, right?
Right, like imagine what if you're playing a list that has almost nothing with stat changes in it, and then suddenly the whole meta has more hit points.
Correct. And that's even
Right,
it's still the issue that they flat out said that they're changing certain models. So how those are going to affect or change things, like you can just get completely sidetracked by something, be like, you got changed. Cool. Didn't see that coming. Yep.
Yeah, especially if we see something like Peerless added to something or something like that.
Like change how lists work. Like, and that'd be the actual worst, right? Like you have Peerless or something that fundamentally changes like the model, like how gems work. Like gems have changed multiple times, right? And so something like that level of change to a list can fundamentally alter how a list works, right? Or like the design of a list. Now you're like, oh, well, now my effort just went out the window. So like, what do I do?
Yeah, or imagine you're playing a list that has a Thanos sort of character in it or something, and that changes threat level. Where you're like, I designed my whole roster around playing this character all the time, and now they're a different threat level.
Yeah,
like, what does that do to like the whole list design? So
yes, I have
complicated.
A lot of empathy for people. I mean, I have a lot of empathy for both sides. I just have a lot of empathy for the player situation, right? Because like it's happened to me multiple times, having things change the week of events and going through and having to play through. It's like it happens, right? It's just after a certain number of times, it does feel bad having it happen multiple times.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think it's any like one person's fault. It's just unfortunate timing, I guess.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Truly.
Yes, them ice skating boys.
What have you been up to this week?
I got to see Dizzard on Sunday. Because Dizzard just moved back to Washington. I gave him a spare set of MCP templates so that he could get back into the groove. He's been very excited about Sentinels, so it was good to see him. We did not get a game in, but it was good to see him and kind of get a feel. I think he said he's like a 50-minute drive or something from Mox Bellevue, so not too bad. So could definitely see him for some stuff. So in general, excited about that. Excited to see Dizzard. It's funny like when you're hanging out with somebody who you feel like you've known for a long ass time, but I've only seen Dizzard in person twice. Right? Like
that's the power of the internet, right?
And like one other time. So it's like, I've known you forever, but like not in person.
Yeah, magical bonding time.
Yes. But yeah, just kind of been trying to knock out projects. I forget when we last recorded, I've been working on my Logan. Just excited about him. So I'd done a new base for him. And excited with how that's turning out. I did because I was painting mobile models at the same time. I started painting his base in my Shatterpoint color scheme, and I was like, "Wait a second, wrong color. Nope,
wrong boy.
Yeah, nope. We're changing that. Just kind of hit autopilot for a second, and it was like the very beginning of like base coding the base. But
I mean, it's easy to fix. It's just sort of like it's hard.
It just felt silly.
Yeah. Yes. Lots of fun stuff.
I've been doing more of the pouring the epoxy. Feel very professional with the degasser, and I have a whole container full of these random pillars and stuff.
Yeah, was getting through degasser and upgrading your setup. I have been behind on painting. Only because it's been hot and we've been doing some construction stuff at my place. So just have a lot of other side projects to do on the side. But this week I finally caught up to X-Men. And so X-Men 97, I caught up on season 2.
Okay, I haven't watched any of the X-Men 97. I'm waiting until I can watch more episodes at once.
You watched any of 97?
I've watched the first season.
Okay.
I have not watched any of the new
Killing me.
season yet. Yeah, I'm excited, but I want to. Those episodes are too
man.
short for me to watch one fucking episode at a time.
I watched the pairs. So, and that's how I go. I really wanted to talk to you about those 2 episodes, actually.
No,
they're
no,
up
we
to 4
gotta
episodes
wait.
now, so we
I
gotta
wanna-
wait. Now you're gonna make me
Yeah.
wait. I'm so excited.
Yep.
It was, oh man,
well,
such a good talking point.
And I know
too.
because I'm wanting to go back to X-Men, so I'm like also saving it for like. I kind of want to like watch it right around like the errata when I'm like finishing up my list and like getting all fucking hyped to go, rock some X-Men again. In theory.
It just like watching the show again, it just makes you so hyped for X-Men. Like everyone's just going in, all being buddies. I'm like, all the crews are back together.
Love it. So one other piece of MCP news. Did you see the Marvel Alliance's Green Goblin themed dice?
No, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah, so there's a pack of green and purple MCP dice.
Man, I want those dice.
And I was really excited at first because I thought it was just like a product, like you were just going to be able to buy this alternate dice set, but it's not. It's a set that's like a promotional thing that stores get for being part of an Asmodee purchasing program, and I don't even know how many the stores are going to get. And so I'm like, God damn it. I was all excited about more dice. Why don't you just print some goddamn dice?
I mean, this is the beauty of it, right? They trick you into getting more dice. It's how they'll get you forever. Just more dice all day.
I don't understand why MCP and Shatterpoint don't at least have one alternate dice set that you can buy. It seems like easy money. Dice are not expensive to print.
Yeah.
But you could do tons of other colors for prize support. You don't need every color for sale. But why not at least do one alternate set?
Yeah, I am very... I mean, I think they have lots of ideas for dice. I think there's lots of options. Yeah. I think they've been reserving them for fun stuff. They took them a long time even to have the alternate color dice.
Yeah, and that was a prediction. Yeah. If you go back to old Omnis Protocol episodes, I called out. I was like, if they're not printing them now, this has got to be a prize support thing. Right? That's the only reason I can see not doing more dice colors is if you're saving it for prize support. And obviously with COVID, they may have had intentions of releasing alternate dice sooner.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so like it's all fun stuff, right? I do like all the fun extras, accoutrements.
All right, well, let's shift over. So we had started talking about it in this bonus episode, and also, by the way, I was we were trying to like amp up some stuff to try to get the last bit of subscribers on YouTube for the final partnership level, which has not gone the way that I wanted it to go. We gained like 4 or something, but I had made like our last 3 video versions of our bonus episodes public on YouTube as just like some like random excitement, and just seeing like all sorts of people comment on those. And there's a lot of Danny love, just for the record.
Well, yeah.
But in general, still trying to like hit that 1,000 mark. But we, in the last bonus episode, which is publicly available on YouTube, we started talking about capitalism and how it relates to a war game and having the best possible war game. And is that possible? Like, do those things actually like work together in a way to yield the positive result? And what I mean by this is, if you, Danny, came to me and you're like, Omnis, I'm starting my own skirmish game or war game. I've got, I've got artists on like ready to work. I've got sculptors. I've working on the game. And you're like, what is your advice? Right. And like sort of advice you'd give to your friend. You're like, oh, well, you got to carve out your own niche, right? What is your game going to do differently than the other games are on the market? How are you going to pull people away from these other games? Like what is the identity of your game? Are you going for a unique theme? Or are you trying to just do a theme better? These are the sort of questions that I would ask you, but I was realizing like there's a group of corporate board members sitting around and going like, how do we make the most profitable war game possible, they're probably asking completely different questions, right? They're going like, what sells the best? What keeps costs as low as possible? You know, things like, you know, making boxes that people need to buy multiple times. You know, it's a very different conversation.
I think
so. That's just one of the examples.
Yeah, what would help people here sort of frame the conversation a little bit.
Let's frame it,
right?
baby.
In terms of, I mean, we'll just do tabletops because it's the simplest right now. We can do other game systems, but just for the sake of simplicity here. Your earlier part, you sort of mentioned the artists and designers and everything, but the ultimate problem here we're trying to solve is how do people get paid? Right? Is that it's very easy to go like, hey, I have an idea, I want to do this. But then you need people to, you know, donate their time, you know, their skill, their effort, right, into doing something. And, you know, you can sway their hearts and minds, but at the end of the day, money also works. So ultimately, right, you want to, you know, get these people to help get this idea, right, this game, system, whatever it is you're trying to do, promoted enough that you get people bought in and involved, you're able to do or produce or work on this full time because you're so passionate about this product or idea that you just want to do it all the time and provide something for someone else, right? And that's sort of like what I imagine is like the basis for creating games, right? In a lot of ways. Forget about the capitalism and everything, right? That's like the core thing. But ultimately the problem again is how do you pay people? How do we generate money to do stuff? And this is where you get into the ultimate issue of how do games make money? Right? How do miniature games make money? Well, by selling plastic, right? That's how they make money.
Or rule books. Sometimes rule books. Or dice.
That's fair.
Sell dice, AMG. Sell some goddamn dice.
But ultimately, you're pushing boxes, right? And there is a push-pull on this problem because we can use Walmart or Target, right? Any of the big box stores, an example, is that there's limited shelf space at any store. Doesn't matter how big you are. There's a limited amount of shelf space at any store. And so there is the push-pull of what do you have on your shelves. Seasonality, you go into a lot of the big box stores, different times of the year have different products. Where do they all come from? Right? Where is this all going? How do people decide what to put on the shelves at what time of year? What makes sense in season, out of season? But to bring it back to tabletop games is you have multiple different game systems, right? And coming at it from the game store owner point of view is how do you know which games to support? Generally by the ones that sell well. Right? Because they also have a stake in the situation and what's going on.
Well, if we're talking game store economics, right? A lot of the time it's, what are your employees passionate about? Because if you've got employees who are passionate about a game, you should probably fucking stock the game because they're going to sell it.
Because,
right? They're going to, and you like, if you go to a counter at a game store and you're like, hey, you're like talking, or it's a person you've bought stuff from before, or they gave you a good suggestion, and they're fucking in love with a game. You're going to feel that. You're like, man, I gotta fucking try this game. That sounds really good. You know, because you're feeling their excitement. And if you don't have any employees who are excited about a particular game, it is not going to sell as well. And so if you've got a game, you know, like if the warehouses or, you know, the distributors are like, this game is selling so great right now, and you're not selling it, you might be going, I fucking need an employee who knows this game.
Like, what's going on? I need to learn this game.
We're missing out.
And I think you hit the nail on a couple of things is that on top of having a product, you also need a hook, right? Like you also need a reason. Generally, if someone's excited, like if you have a friend in your friend group's like, hey, I'm excited about this game and I want to teach you how to play this game, that can be good enough hook. It could be the theme, right? The property itself. You just like Marvel, you just like Star Wars, and that's enough of a hook for you to get you involved in the product. So there's your initial hook will get you in the setting or get you in the game system. There is a longevity, and that's where like the money aspect goes into a lot of game systems is that you can have a good hook. You can get people excited in that first year. And then it's how do you maintain sales? How do you continue making money? Right? Like if people have bought the first couple expansion sets, they're like, I love this game. It's great. No change, no notes. Then what happens?
So totally random. I was thinking about when I decided to actually get into War Machine back in the day. And I had seen the models and I was like, oh, I don't want to play steampunk stuff. That's not really my jam. Then I saw the front of a GPS magazine that had the Horde stuff on it. And it hadn't occurred to me until just this moment that I don't know if Privateer Press paid to be the cover of that magazine or if GTS just chooses games that are or how does that happen? Was that an intentional advertising spot? Because it was like seeing the ad, like seeing the art of the Hordes battle on the front of that magazine was a turning point in me deciding to get into the game.
What I would say for War Machine is the book cover artists were usually on point for delivering like the visual look and feel of an army.
Yes,
army
they
books
were. Jesus,
right.
they were
like,
great.
The army book was like, oh, they're here to party, right? They're marching to town and letting everyone on fire, right? The visual was sick. And I just like the feeling that you could, to me, that felt a lot like the codexes in Games Workshop games, where you got some visuals, a narrative, and you really got into the theme. And what I liked about, Prior to Pest in general, War Machine and Horrors, is that they had these huge full-page spreads, right? The huge battles, or like the marquee fight of certain books would have like these huge spreads and everything, like the full battle pages. And you're like, the poster work and everything was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I do miss those books, right? I remember sitting at work and like, I have some downtime, and just like flipping through the books that I had and like looking for list ideas and just like kind of going through and like, I'm gonna absorb the story about this new character or whatever. I do miss that stuff to a certain degree, but
it's a little different with Marvel, obviously, it's like back history and comics to go through, but I like that sort of like all-in-one packaging. But again, going back to, actually, that is a part of sales, right? Is that printing paper is cheaper, right, than printing plastic in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And be able to sell books. There's other mediums. And so what a lot of game companies do, right, after that first year of models, there's supplementary materials. There's your extra dice. There's your acrylics. Then you get into like second wave releases and all sort of stuff. But then you get into the inherent problem, right, is that how do you keep people buying models? Right. Over time is that most people aren't full collectors, as in they're not going to buy every single mod that releases for a game. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that from most people. Generally, people will have like a couple favorite factions they'll play and maybe some extras they'll kind of play around with from there. I imagine most people probably don't, like realistically, probably don't play more than 4 or 5 factions.
If even that,
right? Like
if you think about it, the average person who goes into a game store who even likes games, you imagine looking at a game and being like, oh, it's like $80. And you're like, I don't know if I'm going to like this game enough to pay $80 for it. And we've got, every month is like, here's your new $50, $60 box, right? That like, it's like a board game subscription practically.
For sure. How some game systems get around this, and like the old War Machine model was like, hey, book releases had something for everyone. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like every group, at certain points, everyone's getting new models and new things to be excited about. Or you kind of do the wave model, which is like, hey, we're doing themes or groupings of models together based on some criteria, right? Sometimes it's like an epic battle or some sort of narrative thing. Doesn't really matter, right? And we're moving models along there. Both systems have ups and downs, right? And they're trying to solve for different things. Is that ultimately speaking, the problem with the first model is that it actually requires too much balancing up front. You have to require like, okay, well, every faction, every affiliation needs something at the same time. Well, you have a scaling issue because the more affiliations you add, the more your release cycle starts growing because every time you release something, you have to test more and more factions, which causes each release to get longer. That's well, and
happen. let's pause on that one for a second because that gets more complicated with, say, something like Marvel Crisis Protocol, right? Where let's say you're planning a wave, and even if whether the stuff all comes out at the same time or doesn't come out at the same time, right? People who are making the game also have to go, well, we know how much a Web Warriors box sells for, like how many people buy that, right?
And their popularity, right?
And how many people buy like the mutant boxes, right? But then you're like, well, how many people buy the Winter Guard boxes? And some of these like more awkward things where, you have like from a capitalist perspective, you have to look at some of those things and go, well, from a pure corporate board member, shareholder, you're going, well, let's just make more of the spider boxes. Those sell the best. Make more of those. I mean, don't spend time on the others.
Ultimately, you talk about ROA, right? Like return on investment here. It's like, hey, the time and energy spent on Winter Guard could have better been spent on a different product that would have potentially sold more. Is the basic of the argument, right? It's like, well, if we make more spiders, everyone will buy spiders. And then you kind of get into the flooding of the market issue, where it's like, well, you keep making the same thing to the point where it dilutes the product. And then you're like, well, no one wants it anymore because there's no way to differentiate between anything. It's all just like a soup. But that's like a bigger problem, capitalism, more than anything.
But I do think that that's one of the fundamental things that we're kind of like talking about in this topic, that how do you make the most money off of the particular game? Does that lead to the game being in the best possible state? Like, I have to imagine that with War Machine, that the factions did not sell equally, right?
No,
like, I don't know.
There's no way.
But I kind of wish that I could just go message somebody right now, but I don't know who it would be, and be like, hey, how much, like, when you did a new release, was it a fairly even spread, or were there factions that sold drastically less than the others? And that sort of thing. Because you always
hype mandates that certain factions are going to win, right? Just by cool factor.
Yeah. But at the same time, I don't feel like Privateer Press made their decisions about which factions play better. I feel like there was definitely like, what do we want to tell stories about?
Yeah.
Kind of led the way, which is very different. But like, obviously having a powerful IP like Marvel, right, is great for selling a miniatures game. But it comes with all sorts of limitations, right? Where you can't just create something new and exciting.
Yeah, like there are certain things characters cannot do, right? Based on the design guides and how their characters are set up. And so there are certain things that just design space wise you can't do certain characters. Now, you may not care about that fact based on the game you're designing. It may not be limiting to you, but that is a complication. Another complication is actually paying for licensed characters. Like that's the other thing. Like when you create an IP, you are generally the owner, right? Set IP, depending on your split with your designers and artists and stuff. But licensing an IP means you're paying money, generally speaking, or some sort of commission or fee based on sales. And a lot of those contracts, the big ones, have mandatory minimums, as in they expect a certain amount of return per quarter, right? Which then comes into like, well, I got to make money now, right? On top of the overhead, on top of all the other things going on and designing the game, I now have a mandate to make a certain amount, which further complicates things.
Well, it's got to be a struggle balance-wise, right, as well. Like, say, we've been using Web Warriors as an example, so we'll stick with that. But say you're going, all right, we feel like Web Warriors need X to continue with just how the game is developed. So then you would have to like look for a character. If you're trying to do that route of we want something in like with Web Warriors to help them accomplish this. So you have to kind of pick a character that would do that. And then maybe it doesn't exist.
Right.
But maybe it does exist, but it's a much less well-known character. So then you have to justify making a character that's like would help you balance things, but maybe a considerably less popular character overall.
Yes. Do you take a game, right? Do you take a game on MODOK, for example? Like there are these sort of questions where it's like, hey, are the memes and jokes about characters just memes and jokes and people really like this character? Or are they just hyping up something that doesn't really exist?
Yeah, I will definitely say that like the Facebook group for Marvel Crisis Protocol and the like monthly wish list stuff and the characters that people are asking for make me feel like I am not a Marvel fan at all. Right? I don't even know who that is. I feel like people are asking for characters not because they love those characters, but they just want to stand out and be like, I know who, the dark magic, Shitterverse character is that y'all have never heard of. So I'm a true Marvel fan.
I don't know. It gets so wild sometimes. Like there's characters who only existed for like a couple volumes, and it's like, sure, probably. So you end up. So the original question posed is about designing games, right? And incentives. So we now have talked about the profit incentive, right? The things that are sort of motivating the why you're selling things and the costs involved and what kind of goes into them. But the why, right? So there's the issue of, is this character cool enough on their own and hype factor? But then the flip side to this is we have to sell this character, because we've had misses where characters like, this character should be cool, should be awesome. Rules come out and you're like,
Well, there's also the route of like, how often has like a really weird character that most people don't know been the best character in the meta?
I want Orb
Right,
to
like-
rule. I want Orb just crush. Absolutely crush.
You would. You and Dallas. But like so naturally speaking, I would understand the logic of, okay, if we're going to make lesser known characters, you would have to tone up their power level a little bit, right? Make them
Yes,
higher on the curve, because you want to make sure that those boxes sell. But that creates a very weird dynamic, right? Where like, well, we know Spider-Man's going to sell, so Spider-Man doesn't have to be great, but we need Orb to sell, so we're going to make Orb fucking amazing. I'm not saying that AMG is doing this, but this is the sort of like capitalist
The logic
mindset,
you can come into. Yeah.
right? Like the logic tunnels you could end up in. And we've definitely, like, obviously Hulk started off garbage. MODOK started off game breaking, right? Like, and that would be the opposite of what you would want in general. People want to buy Hulk. They don't want to buy MODOK, but MODOK was running the meta to begin with. And that's just an example of like, and I feel like we actually have a fair amount of those over the course of the history of MCP, where, you know, some of the lesser well-known stuff has actually like really stood out as being like fucking amazing.
Which is fun in these sort of games, because I think a lot of, you know, your secondary, tertiary characters can get some love and show off, you know, ability. It's really cool. You can see in these lesser games where it tends to be your main heroes do all the cool work, right? In movies and shows. So it's fun in that sense. And then there's like fan favorites that get to do cool stuff, right? Like I always love Jessica Drew. She's a fun character. I don't care what anyone says.
But so the fundamental question is, does it lead to actually getting like the best war game, the best skirmish game? And like, I'm not trying to be like totally anti-capitalist here, because I think the concept of, oh, in our society, we can have people like Pagani and Plumber, etc. Their jobs are making games. They are getting better at their jobs every week and only proceed to like make better and better gaming choices for us. And that part excites me, where you have people who grew up with these games, who learn these games, who tournamented these games, and now are making games to make my life more interesting. And that I love. So like I'm happy that they don't have to have a normal job and make this stuff at a much slower pace behind the scenes and like have it not be their paying gig. That's would be kind of sad. So like in that effect, capitalism helps.
Yes, getting paid does help the sport endeavors, right? In terms of being able to fulfill them and continue doing them. I think it can also cause the problem where the expectation of, hey, why can't you do more, better, faster? It's your only thing you're doing. Why can't other factors? And there's always the unknown of how things work behind the screen, right? And what's going on, because a lot of factors going on that we're not privy to, right? We're not in the inner workings of the company.
I was just thinking about how expensive. So Errata is not actually releasing models, right? We have an errata. We know this on the horizon. It takes playtesting and then writing a document. And so you like kind of think that it's like cheaper than making models, like on the surface. But I was starting to think like how, like, it would be interesting to know the numbers of what is the actual true cost. Because like, for example, every fucking document's got to be reviewed by Disney, right?
Yeah.
How much legal money is spent reviewing affiliation base size document, right? Like, what is the actual cost of that? And like, how much legal fees are actually paid to like review an errata document. I don't have any idea what it is. Could be like, I imagine lawyers get paid quite a bit, right?
They do. I think, this is the whole licensing properties versus like trying to create your own. The issue with large managed properties is that they are managed, right? Usually by a team of lawyers and executive. And this happens Lord of the Rings, all sorts of things, right? In terms of critiques. And not to say it's good or bad. That is the price you pay in using licensed properties. And I think that is the question then becomes, is it worth the squeeze? Right. And the amount of effort you need to put in and what needs to happen for you to get those with some, licenses, they base money, right? You just go in, you're like, cool, you just make a game, easy money, walk out, you're done. But then the question is, can you maintain the momentum?
Danny, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Do you think that the lawyers, attorneys, legal counsel, whatever, that reviews documents for Disney have to learn the games? Like,
no. I would assume they don't. And I think this is funny why they wouldn't, because it has nothing to do with how they play in the game themselves. It is how the character is represented and is on brand is what they'd be looking for. Right. And you're like, well, why does that matter?
Have to understand the game to know if the character is...
Hey, Charles, how's a boat work?
I believe that it is used in music videos for rappers, and that's how they sell music videos.
Where I go, I don't need to know how a boat works. I need to know how to ask how a boat works and where to take me places. They have the game designers right there. It's like, hey, how does this work in person? They can just ask.
Okay, so that leads me to basically fundamentally the same question. Whether you're demoing the game for just hypothetical situation that went through my brain. I have no idea if this actually happens. Can you imagine like Will Schick needing to demo the game for lawyers or answer questions that I was like, this person is there to like approve or decline what you're doing with your Marvel game. And like, you've got to like explain to them how it works, but like realize if you explain this poorly, they may be like, no, you can't do that.
You're not thinking high level enough. He had to
higher level
demo this game to Disney executives. Forget the lawyers, right?
Yeah.
You have to sell them on the why they should license the brand. The lawyers don't make that decision. Right? So you got to go way, way higher in this conversation. Right. It's like, now imagine that meeting. Like, hey guys, I need to show you this toy works. You're like, haha, don't embarrass yourself.
I mean, I've demoed games with a lot of people. I've demoed games of like War Machine at conventions. I've done a lot of demos in my time. That would be stressful as fuck to be like,
especially like you roll dice, like, we roll dice. Let's go down this road.
Just in general, teaching somebody a game who's probably not a board gamer by default.
That'd be fine. What could go wrong?
Yeah.
Right? What could possibly go wrong?
But the reason why this came up is that I was kind of wondering, like, it was centered a lot around, say, like what Magic the Gathering's doing, right, with the Universe Beyond set, where like clearly they make a whole bunch of money by licensing these other IPs, but it like does that in the net result make your game better? Because like on the like comparison side, I don't like if I'm playing a Marvel game, I don't really want, like, maybe I could get by with DC characters, right? Like HeroClix was fine in the sense that you could have, Wolverine and Superman on the same team. Who cares? But would I want to be playing Marvel and suddenly having StarCraft like mixed in?
Well, like on one hand, asymmetrical games are really funny and interesting to me. So like someone playing an RTS and someone playing like a hero fighter at the same time, we really like someone's like the bot, like controlling the AMI has like goals of taking over the map, like area control stuff, and the person's like fighting them off and stuff. Would be an interesting game. But no, I think in terms of staying within a theme, hard shifting and mixing different brands can, one, aesthetically be super weird, right, between their art styles, but two, how they interact with each other can change the nature of a game, right? StarCraft tends to be mostly range focused, right? It's a lot of characters you're not walking, not most characters in that game are watching and just punching each other, or again, a slugfest. Not that there aren't melee characters, but a lot of them have cool guns or shooters, have fucking planes right, flying around in
Well, so if I go back to why I originally started playing Magic the Gathering, which led me down a lot of these loopholes, right? I still remember that my mom had bought a pack of Magic cards, and I looked at it, and I saw the Fireball card, and I was like, this is making me think of Final Fantasy and the role-playing games that I play. That seems cool. The art is cool. Just wizard shit, right? And that's what lured me into it. Not that it was anything else, that it was Star Wars or that it was, weird now because there actually is Final Fantasy set in there. So that's, that's kind of a funny swap over. But in Marvel, I wasn't drawn to MCP because it was Marvel. Like, that helped. But what made me fall in love with Marvel was definitely the mechanics, right? It was the crisis cards and like the objectives and how the movement interacted with attacking, and like that was the stuff that made me fall in love with it. So like, why am I adverse to it being mixed up? Like,
funny.
Do you see what I'm asking myself right now?
Yeah, I'm very much a theme. You got to sell me on it. And it's very much Marvel. Like I said in War Machine, it was the visuals. And so if I don't vibe with the game visually, it's just never going to work. Right? I got to find something that aesthetically works with me, works for me, right? Not to say like one style works for everyone. Yeah, it's like making choices in games. Like, how do you decide certain things?
But I am realizing mid-conversation, this was not where I originally intended this conversation to go. But what I'm realizing is that this not wanting to cross genres, cross IPs into the same thing is really like an exaggerated version of I want to play all mutants, or like Ryan Farmer, right, wanting to play all webs, right? Like all that, like essentially, like I just draw the line in a different spot, essentially, where I'm like, I would like to play all Marvel stuff together because that sounds cool. I don't really want to play, like, it would be weird for me being like, all right, I'm playing Miles Morales and Darth Vader, right? Like, that would feel weird to me. And like, I got this list where like, all right, I play Darth Vader every list, but sometimes I play him with Miles, sometimes I play him with Storm. That would be weird. And I think to a certain extent that's me just drawing a line in a different spot that like is earlier on the spectrum for, say, someone like Farmer, who was like, I came here to play fucking Web Warriors. That's what we're doing, buddy. He probably wouldn't swear. He'd be nicer about it.
Yeah, I can see where you're drawing the connection there. And you do have a point, right? It's sort of a question of what is within scope. But I mean, I guess you could say everything within a shared universe does make sense. And we start sharing into other, it's why I said like the aesthetics and the vibes start really mixing in. It just clashes for me. But again, I say that, but there are other franchises and cross-up games that I love that are super silly, but they sort of lean into that aspect and the silliness of how crossovers can work in a lot of situations.
Well, and like, I'm obviously in the camp, like some of the sillier characters in Marvel, I don't care for as much. Like, man, fucking Hydra Bob has to be really fucking perfect for a list for me to want to play Hydra Bob. Like,
Hydra Bob rules. Bob is the man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm just using an example here.
He's a normal, everyday man.
Yeah, it's. But anyway, back to the point. Like, can we have both at the same time, where the net result is that we are ending up with the best possible game? And is the best possible game, like, how do you differentiate the most popular game from the best possible game? Because I feel like everyone who listens to the show probably agrees that 40K is not the best miniatures game. Right?
Okay. Start with this premise.
Right? Like, it is the most popular miniatures game.
It is a very popular miniatures game.
Right? But we all go, that is not the best miniatures game. And I think that there's probably a lot of people who play it who think that it is not the best miniatures game, but it is often like, when Dizzard and I were doing the early Rogue support, Sam left that show and stopped playing MCP and Shatterpoint just because people in his community didn't play it enough. And so he's playing 40K or Age of Sigmar or whatever, not because that was his favorite game, but because that was the game that everyone around him was playing.
Yes. Well, you get into this problem with competitions, really, and how this is actually going to work in the longer run, right? Because like you were talking about fairness and balance of the game. It's like, well, if you truly want a completely balanced and equal game, you essentially want a fixed game where the rules don't change. You can't add more models over time. So ultimately, I think we are sort of chasing the dragon of finding this like balance of new things within a system, right? And trying things out. But because of that, what is good or balanced? So you were talking about GW, and it's like, Games Workshop, by definition, has to be a successful game because it prints money.
Right.
Like, by definition, it prints
the best game because it's the most popular. Or did it just
can you
cross
defeat
a
that logic,
threshold?
right? Like,
yeah.
it just, the logic of, well, it doesn't matter whether good is a quality of a product, right? And how you judge that quality depends on you, the person, how you perceive fairness and rules and how things work. Because you can think a game is in balance and everyone's like, the game's fine, you're just bad, get good, nerd. Right? So there's a perspective problem here. Whereas the competitive aspect comes in is that it's hard because you can't judge players equally. You can't just say, hey,
100%.
I would take 50 players and be like, regardless of skill level, they're exactly equal. They play these models. We'll just see what the best is. And I was like, well, that's not how that works at all.
You could also compare this to movies, right? Which I do think is not apples to oranges. It's not the exact same thing.
Sure.
But if you go through the list of Marvel movies and how much money they made, that is not the order of the best movies.
No.
Right? Like, if you go through the order of which Marvel movies made the most, like, Black Panther 2 was a relatively mediocre movie, in my opinion. And that movie made, like, 800 million. And I love Captain America 1. Captain America 1 is one of my top 5s. That's one of, like, the bottom 5 movies in it. And like, Iron Man 3 is one of my least favorite Marvel movies, and that one made a shit ton of money. That one might have been around like the hype era.
Yeah, it was like pure up there, and that movie is just all over the place.
Yeah, like I act like Age of Ultron, also borderline garbage, and Age of Ultron is one of the like higher grossing ones as well, and so it's like, the amount of money that it makes and the amount of people that want to participate in it, I think it's fair to say that does not necessarily mean it's the best.
Correct. It is entirely possible to lose sight of the purpose of what you're doing in the pursuit of money and going, well, these are popular characters or popular models. They'll just sell. It doesn't matter how much effort put in. Everyone loves Spider-Man. Get out there. Make them bucks. Which is like the inverse, right? The whole situation is that the profit incentive can sort of take over everything, right? And dictates everything, regardless of whether it's good or not. It's whether it sells and makes money. And something that makes money is, as we just said, isn't necessarily indicative of how good it is or how a balanced model is. It just means it sells well, which is technically orthogonal to the question, right? You can have things that sell well that are absolute trash, right? That has nothing to do anything.
So maybe a sub question here. I don't know if skirmish games make anywhere near the amount of money that the other games make, like a Warhammer or a Legion or
cannot. And here's the perfect example of why is that when you design an army-based game, you design generally a rule for those grunts and maybe the leader, the hero, or captain of the squad. So you have 2 cards for, let's say, 10 models, 11 models. For 11 models in a skirmish game, you have 11 different cards, right? Interactions and rules. And so you have way more words per character is what ends up happening. So there's just more rules and efforts per character. So the complications go through, where in a lot of bigger games, they do cohesion is basically very sticky now. Like, hey, move the guy, moves around to simplify all of that. So you have more blob-like movements, right? And more of like, hey, the individual models don't matter. And so it's not about individual. They're just there as like chick counters, effectively, just health markers and random bodies.
Their health on the table.
Yeah.
Not a terrible idea to begin with. So I guess so on the flip side, right? X-Wing, there was a point, I never played X-Wing, but there was a point where X-Wing was like top 3. Mm-hmm. Like it was one of the top selling miniatures games of its era, that it was, I believe, above Age of Sigmar, right? It was right up there, not passing 40K, but I think it was like better than like everything else
for a long time.
And that is not really what I would consider a traditional army game. And so it's like, is it just because that game was it was both different and more people could get into it because it was pre-painted?
I think, again, it's that getting in the hype. It's that the hook alone is in the world of miniature game. There aren't many games that are purely focused on vehicles, regardless of whether they're on land, sea, or air, right? It has nothing to do with anything. It's space, right? So having that style of combat, the style of combat is Flames of War, right? Which is very fun, biplane, running around, dogfighting stuff. So it was already proven game system, right? And it's like, hey, the theming and flavoring really just like hit it at the point where it go through. And most people, to be honest, just hate assembling, doing the hopping aspects, right? Not to shame them or anything, right? It's just, they just don't enjoy it.
One of my main opponents back in the Star Wars Minis days, and then I got them into War Machine, but Joel was one of the guys who like made me good. Like quite literally. He was so good. He had the mind for this sort of game. He was the steel that sharpened my steel, and a lot of my success just came from playing him in games. He does not like painting at all. And so I was kind of surprised in retrospect that I ever got him to play War Machine, but like that's kind of why he's never gotten into like MCP or Shatterpoint. I think he plays like Star Wars Unlimited now, but he was really fucking good. Like he was the person I always could lose to.
If that game had just did pre-assembled plastics but not pre-painted, if the economics of it would have worked a little better.
Which game?
X-Wing. Where they're pre-assembled but not pre-painted, right? So you can still play the game, get going almost immediately, and if it was like that level of board game-ish, right? Where it's like you just pop them in and kind of go from there. Because like it had to have been expensive, pre-painting all of these models, having them on theme, going through quality control, all sorts of things that could happen during that process.
Yeah, and I know that Will Schick said in an interview that kind of stuff has gotten even more expensive. And it would be unfeasible to do it in this day and age. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if I believe that entirely. I'm sure the costs have gone up. But at the same time, I definitely know that Will Schick has been very anti-pre-painted miniatures. He's done interviews in the past. And I remember him talking about being a game store employee and like looking down, it was like Mage Knight or something. And
Mage Knight.
Not thinking highly of the pre-painted stuff. Not saying that we should have the pre-painted stuff, because I remember thinking Star Wars minis looked good, and I look back at those models now, I'm like, holy fuck, this shit was hot garbage. Like the shit that I painted and go, this is meh, is like 100 times better than the pre-painted stuff. And a lot of time, even the X-Wing stuff seemed like, if you put a black wash over this stuff and like did just like a touch of dye brushing, you could really really spice these up. But that makes me go like, is Marvel Alliances like the snap fit stuff? How much does that sort of thing potentially play into maybe getting more sales for a game that would allow you to have like a really good game reach more people? Like, is that maybe a key element? That was definitely not where I was intending this to go, but
well, I think that's part of like the board game selling point, right? Is that in board games, and vast majority of board games, there is not very much setup outside of punching out cardboard, and maybe some very light assembling of like structures or something. Right. But outside of that, it's mostly flat pack for most board games, or maybe a couple, fancier things they have going through. Where miniatures game, like a huge problem in miniature gaming is all the extras you have to buy. You got to buy bags. You got to have some sort of carrying system, right? Like the most disheartening thing in a miniatures game is dropping or a model falls through, or this always happens early in your career, is that you kind of have like an okay storage solution until one day you realize that soft boxes don't actually work in the long run. And then like someone like drops it or something gets pushed onto it, slam, and you're like, oh no.
No. All right. So question for you, Danny, the Glorious.
Yeah.
With like, they've got some pretty good looking models in the Marvel Alliances stuff. Like, I'm really excited about the Rogue, like in particular. And from what I've heard, it seems like the core set 2.0 is like fucking sold out. Like, you can't get more of them. And that kind of makes sense because they're pushing the new starter products, right? The X-Men box, the Foes box, the Guardians box, the Asgard box, etc. So it makes sense that that's not a focus to reprint it. But that means that there's a reasonable chance if stores can't restock that particular product, that seems like there's a reasonable chance that product is not available right now. Like, they might have sold out of that run.
Effectively, yeah.
Right. So if they go to print another core set, should they do should we have a snap fit core set? Like, is that better for the game?
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised that core boxes aren't more snap fit, because GW's done that in the past.
Yeah.
Right? Where it's like snap to base, and maybe like you look an arm in, and like the very single static poses are very flat and everything. So like that is very much a selling point in other games, are very simple, the static poses. Very much so. I could see that. And there's tons of people, during War Machine days who just had pure metal models, right? A lot of the later models are pretty straightforward to assemble, right? You wouldn't use too heavy. Like the really crazy models, they had a pin.
Yeah. Well, and because they're already like doing some snap fit of some of the Avengers stuff, right? Like, we know there's an Iron Man, right? A Black Widow, Captain America, something like that.
Yeah.
I forget everybody who is in that particular one, but yeah, that could be a really good step to, like, maybe the balancing fact to grow because I do think MCP is a fundamentally great game that has changed the gaming space, and maybe the goal to like have a game that's not going to in itself sell as well as 40K. Like, let's be honest, MCP is never going to pass 40K. Like, that's just, unless GW absolutely shits the fucking bed, that's not going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. But maybe accessibility is the key, and so Marvel Alliances being like a kind of a testing step, and then maybe a snap fit core set. Yeah, okay. This was definitely not where I thought the conversation was going to go, but it's interesting where our minds roll.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a good topic to kind of let things out. All right. With that said, I mean, that's a pretty fun, conversation piece about how the inner workings of, game design works, and so how you influence it and how do you actually go about all of this, and maybe even like touch actual tournament competitive nature and how these things like affect games and perceptions, right? Because like, who do you design models for? The people buying models, people who play competitive stuff. There's a whole bunch of like factors into this, but I think at its core, people have to remember that these companies are trying to make money, right? And they're trying to figure out the best way to do that, and not everyone succeeds. Not every idea is a winner, right? Like, that's also true.
Yeah, it's certainly a difficult balancing act where, like, if you're thinking about it from a purely capitalistic perspective, where do you have your employees spend their time on, right? Is errata an effective way to spend their time? It feels like it is. Like, if we let Malekith or Thor 2 or whatever just roll over the game, we would just stop playing. Or you have to ban them.
This is such an interesting problem, right? Because I think erratas are both good and can be a wet fart at the same time.
Yep.
Because erratas mean most to people who've already been playing the game, right? Because they are at the point where they are frustrated. They want to see change. Erratas don't really matter to people who are getting in and learning a game or system because they don't have the depth of knowledge to be affected by them necessarily. It might change the meta and a couple other things.
It does affect them at least a little bit, though, right? Because if you're coming into a game store and you're just getting fucking shit on by Thanos or whatever, and you're like, they're okay. There's like these 1 or 2 lists that specifically compete with Thanos. Otherwise, you're just going to get fucking raffle stomped by Thanos. You probably don't keep coming back.
That is true, and that's the model disparity that can happen. I was more thinking about the situation where you're a new player, you go to the store, you've been playing a model, you've been playing for like a month, and someone's like, hey, that card's wrong, or hey, you haven't been playing up to rules, hey, these scenarios aren't the real scenarios anymore. It's like, that doesn't, on one hand, yes, you're playing the more updated, more recent version of the game, but for that person in that moment, it doesn't actually help them, right? That they've been playing something wrong. It's better that they know they're playing something wrong, but it isn't like change their situation necessarily. It's just like, oh, you're in a dead end. Like, oh, cool. Thanks for letting me know that.
Yeah, I actually had someone message me after the episode last week, and they were like, hey, did you decide to do the episode because of the Facebook post? And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't really look at the Facebook group. But apparently there was a guy, mind you, this is totally secondhand. I never saw the post, and I think the post got deleted. But basically somebody was complaining about card errata, like in general, and being like it is it is a totally like unnecessary evil that people think they need to do that's actually bad for the game. I never got to read it, so I don't know what was said. And I was like, no. I came up with a topic because Age of Sigmar had updated stuff, and so I was seeing like an update as a new player, and I was also thinking about MCP errata as, hype, right? Like as a game that I love, and I was experiencing the greatness of the Shatterpoint errata. So it was just an errata in the brain, right? There was errata on every angle, waiting for errata, enjoying errata, dreading errata, all at the same time. And that's why I chose the topic, not because of this particular post, but that's what you're talking about, is like, for some people, this card errata is just chaos.
Yeah, there's like, it's a lot of information, like they're changing, they're learning things. But what I was I had a topic, right? We were just talking about that. You're talking about competitive, talking about cards. I guess we lost it.
Facebook and people. But yeah, you were talking about fundamentally, like, it is hard for new people.
Balance. I was talking about erratas and whether they are good or bad. Ultimately, I think, here's what it is. The full circle of this is that what I said earlier, that the people most excited about errata tend to be players who've been around and playing through. They're also the people who are your bannermen and the people who are ideally creating content or talking about the game and the hype. When the person comes in and doesn't know about the game, needs to talk to someone. Who are they going to talk to? Someone who's been playing the game, right? Like, who else would you talk to? And so, like I said, like there's the push-pull of this, because you want to keep the player base overall in a happy place. You can't serve everyone, right? It's not possible. But generally speaking, you want them in a relatively good place because you want them to be giving off positive vibes, right? So that people come in, they're not like the game's in a trash state, people don't understand balance. It's like, okay, knowing that everyone can't be happy, are people generally excited about the game or not? Right? How do they feel about the game? Is there a faction or two I'm excited to play? I'm interested in diving in either thematically or just their aesthetics. It doesn't really matter. And that's like, okay, you get your hook, you go through. This is where I think erratas can help, right? Because like those long-term players, right, generally tend to get bored over time. Attrition is a real thing. So keeping them engaged, keeping them interested gives you sort of the validation of whether your errata was successful or not. Right? It's like, hey, rules-wise, the people who are the most competitive, hardcore, most understand the rules, it works for them. It should work for more casual people just by nature of they've tested this, the logic and everything, and understand how it works in any sort of like weird edge cases and such you know about. So it's like ups and downs about errata. But in terms of errata in of itself, they are actually net negative in terms of money, right? because you're spending time and energy, again, back to the capitalism point of view, you spend time and energy into something you've already created, that's already out in the wild. Why would I spend more time and energy into something that I've already made and that's already to market? Right? Like, this is the issue here.
I have a thought here. So if I was in charge of Atomic Mass Games, or Asmodee, who's overseeing Atomic Mass Games, and I was looking at what was in the warehouse, and I would be like,
yeah.
Well,
then you get to like really dark places, right?
Right? We printed 20,000 or whatever of this box, and we got a lot still in the warehouse right now that is not selling.
Yes.
Let's work on an errata here that hypes people up for this product, and it moves. And then suddenly people are going out. Let's get this moving over here, all right. And so, like, I do think that's a area where errata has a real potential for keeping something flowing. And I'm almost surprised that, like, think about every time that AMG has done an errata and they nerfed a character, right? Thor and Valkyrie came in a box together, right? Originally, that was the original Thor box. Loki, Hela, Thor, Valkyrie, right? That sounds right. So, like, logically speaking, when you nerf Valkyrie, you should buff Thor so the box keeps selling, right? But they never seem to have done that.
It was
right.
Yes, they've never. Yeah, you're right. They actually haven't done that.
Yeah, and that seems like a thing that, like, almost surprises me from a capitalist perspective. Like, if you have a box and you need to drop a nerf, maybe you buff something else in the box to, like, make sure the sales don't drop off dramatically. But I don't know if that's even a thing that you would think about, or are you worried about the negative press of something like that?
Well, if you continue to have this logic in terms of, hey, you should buff things because you're trying to sell, you could also argue that logic of you want to overtune things that are new to make sure you sell, because most product sells the most in its early half of its life cycle. You know, hype, people get excited before people have further figured out whether they actually do or do not like it. This is the honest truth. So a lot of things sit on the shelves or people forget about them. So there's I want people to be excited and to play this, but I also don't want to break the meta so badly that it's only new releases all the time and don't bother playing anything else. So there's always this fine line of power creep, is what a lot of games call this, or a lot of gamers call this. But what ends up happening in games is that to sell models, new models have to be better than previous models, because if every model is just worse than Zemo, then why not just play Zemo? Right? Like, you just go down this logic.
So, question for you, Danny. Do you think that AMG tones up, like, less popular characters? Because, like, I didn't fucking know who Ulik was. But, like, Ulik drops and I was like, Ulik is definitely better than Thor. Right? Like, you compare Thor to Ulik and it's like, Ulik is definitely the better 5 threat.
I just think it's sometimes easier with these other characters to just pull things out of a hat that aren't expected and can be, you're freer with certain models. Like Ulik, you're not like really structured into how the character is supposed to act and behave. Like, okay, well, Thor kind of has to do these certain like numbers to really feel like Thor. It looks like, he's a troll. Just go do troll things.
Right. Well, like, I agree with what you're saying fundamentally. I'm not sure in this example it applies. It was like, I'm not sure there's anything super creative about what Ulik does. Right, like he's jump
troll.
smash.
He does troll things.
He jump smash. It's not a
but you're saying, hey, he designed well. The design he does well is running around like a troll, smashing things. He is on brand, like by definition.
But like, you could have done. Like, I love the concept of the short move place 2. Where you have like 2 different movements for your charge effect. Fucking love that. But like, I'm kind of surprised that something, and that's powerful as well. It gives you control over like how you're moving in really interesting ways, and like on an overall just like solid stat stick as well. But like that has never been used on anyone but Ulik, who is one of the least well-known characters that is released in MCP.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to say that most people don't know who Ulik is. I did not.
Most people didn't know Malekith either. But your boy is back.
But Malekith had already been in a movie. I feel like way more people knew who Malekith was.
Sure. He was technically in Thor 2. But man, it's such a sad movie.
Technically. He was in Thor 2, not technically in Thor 2.
All right, folks, we'll just end it here. Good seeing you all.
Are you just that unhappy with Thor 2 as a...
Well, I mean, I am not going to disagree. He was most certainly in the movie. I just wouldn't recommend watching it, so...
Hot take, I think Thor 2 is better than Thor 1.
See, that's not even a comparison, because Thor 1, I think, might actually just be a bad movie.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It's so
I thought
boring.
Thor 2 got a little
It's
bit
so
of like...
boring.
Yeah, it's...
Like, nothing happens the first half of the movie. Literally nothing happens.
Please stop making comic book character movies that are about them not having their powers. Like,
yeah, it's like, okay,
Spider-Man 2 did that
around.
well.
Like,
No one else did it well.
it's just, yeah, the whole set of the movie is boring. It's like, oh, I'm slightly less of a jerk. You're like, that's it? That's the whole lesson of the movie? Okay.
I have decided to not have frat boy parties as much anymore.
That's it?
I am
Like,
worthy
really?
again.
Yeah. All right, man. That's all it takes. Sure.
Natalie Portman's so hot, I will give my life to protect her. All right, you're worthy, buddy.
Well, that's it. Sign me up.
Yeah. So to answer the final question, do you think that we can have the best possible miniatures game in capitalism?
I mean, by definition, yes, because it already exists. Games Workshop is already here.
Oh.
Got him.
See, I feel pretty definitively that is not the best miniatures game.
Like, again, it comes down to the argument is how do you define best miniatures game?
Yeah.
And I think from the capitalist point of view, you define it by ROI. And by numbers, Games Workshop wins.
Yeah, but if we go back to the movie example, there are plenty of movies that sell really well that are not great movies. Like, the most digestible is not necessarily, like, the best. And, like, but is that just...
but not all movies
is that my elitist gamer mentality?
Like, it comes down to if... It's like your earlier example you had, which is you play the games that are available to you in your region and the other people play, right? And if you can basically buy a box and always play a game of GW games, is it not, by definition, the best game? It's like the same thing. You can take a chessboard and go to most cities in the world and find someone to play chess with. By definition, it is a good game.
Yeah.
Right? My definition of a good game would be a combination of ability to play the game, right, with other people and actually have opponents and go through, and my enjoyment of the game. It's those two factors, right? Because if I enjoy a game but never get to play it, then it doesn't matter how much I enjoy the game because I never get to play it. Like, it doesn't matter.
There, I agree with you 100%. I think the accessibility of a game is extremely important. Because if I go back, I remember when I got excited about Star Wars minis back in the day. Nobody else fucking played the game at that time.
Yeah,
anytime I found a game store that had a, like, once a month or whatever Star Wars minis thing, I would go there and find, like, the one other person. And, like, that was stressful as fuck. I'm like, I love this game. I want to play more of this game. And, like, finding people who played, right? And, like, early days of MCP, right, where you're just like, fuck, I went in, I played on this, like, intro day, like, when the fuck am I going to find more people to play with? And then we had fucking COVID, and you're just like, I just want to play a game that I love. It doesn't matter how good the game is or how much I love it if I don't have people to play with. And, like, how stressful that can be, like, trying to build up a community or whatever. Like, it's easy to feel in those situations like, maybe I should just fucking play 40K so I can play miniatures games. That is not the moral of what I'm trying to say to the listeners. But I'm just saying that I've understood that feeling of going, I'm trying to build a community for the game that I love, but it's not working, or it's not working nearly as fast as I would like. And wanting, and then going like, God, I would love to just be like playing more miniatures games and spending less time on community building. And that's a stressful fucking point. So I agree with you that like accessibility plays a really big role in this. And I'm not sure what the answer is accessibility wise, because if a game's not selling, it's also hard to get stores to stock it and have stuff being available and that sort of thing.
And it goes back to the very, very early point is that you want to play games that are available, that people are playing, that people are hyped about, talking about, you see something new, and going through is like, that's exciting to get into something new, to learn something with someone else, right? Especially with people that you care about, right? And sharing that experience. So, yeah, but it's an important factor. I think that's why even with the juggernaut that is Games Workshop and Warhammer as a franchise, there are still other game systems. Like there's still room for other ones, even with a huge one in the area. And they've gone through, been very popular, made lots of money, have gone through multiple eras. We can argue about them in comparison to Games Workshop and ultimately whether they are the most successful or what that even means, right? But at the end of the day, there is competition and there's other games. Why we're playing a different game, right? Like it even exists.
So I remember seeing you at LVO. I mean, like, I did not fucking know that Danny was playing MCP. You know, you had brought your X-Force, and I don't even know how long you had been playing. Did you immediately have a community? Like, was there already people playing and you hopped in, or like, how did that come to pass?
There were some people who had been playing in PDX for a little while, and it kind of like moved around to a couple stores. Mox Portland had just opened. Yeah. They were going to open soon after I had started playing. And so I was playing at another store for a while, some other friends and then some locals. So that kind of came up. It wasn't a huge community. It's got up and downs, but like there were people who were already playing, and that helped a lot.
Okay.
Not that I haven't built communities. It's just like, it's a lot of work when you take on that responsibility. Cause like you got to dedicate at least one night a week. Like you're doing a lot of demo games. You're talking to a lot of people. Like you're usually running the Discord and kind of like just organizing and doing all of like the overhead, generally running the events. And so it's very draining, right? To do all of that, especially if you have other responsibilities.
Like I'm so thankful to Lexa that she kind of spearheaded the local community for MCP. Cause like, I'm spearheading the Shatterpoint community, and there's like, it often means that I have to be the odd, if there's an odd number of people, I'm going to be the odd person and not play a game, right? It means often you're choosing a demo over just playing a game, right? It means you're coming in even when there's not very many people or there's low interest because you're trying to keep things going. It's a lot. It fucking drains you. And like, especially when you're not seeing results. And like, so I mentioned Sam earlier in the show where I'm like, I don't blame Sam for wanting to just be able to play miniatures games. So this is kind of a really adjacent thought. We're like, you remember obviously in War Machine, we had the press gang, right? The volunteers who kind of like, were leaders of the stores and running events, and they got like product from I did it. I got product from Privateer Press for running events and that sort of thing. And that was kind of their system to try to like help facilitate, because you can't always depend on an employee being passionate about the game.
They also have mixed priorities, right, in a game store, so.
Right. And like, you can't depend on having a game store, having the sort of person who like amps up the game, but having a system like that helps. But like, there's also the weirdness of like, you basically have employees that you're not paying. Right. Like,
but there's also the fact that, they're not even technically employees, but they represent the company in a way. Right.
Yeah.
And then
that
you
too.
have the situation where they can misconstrue or misrepresent things themselves. And so you have a communication problem. Then there is if they, do a lot of effort and time, are they being compensated fairly? There's a bunch of other factors going into this. Right. That's what makes it I think you basically need someone in that role, right, to be the ambassador.
Yeah.
Right, the game, but for the company, it's a financial investment and technically a liability, right? Of this person who may or may not work out, Because people are just applying. Like, how do you validate this person's actually going to do the things they say they're going to do without following up? And then you're spending more money
one of the
to follow up
problems
with people. To go, it's like, well, okay, what's going on?
People
here?
in obscure fucking stores saying that they ran events, with there's no tracking, and they just wanted free shit. Like, I believe that happened. So do you think that it's worth, like, is that a thing that game, like, not obviously not 40K. 40K doesn't have to worry about it, right? Warhammer doesn't have to worry about it. But is it something that these other, like, say StarCraft, for instance, or MCP or whatever, should in theory maybe have part-time or contracted employees that are like meant to be game advocates for their community? Like, is that an investment that's worth it to grow the game?
So I think that is a thing, but the way it's a thing right now is that this is when games do that press release tour of like demoing, going to a bunch of conventions and showing things off. That's what they're trying to do there, is like get people involved and teach out and give information out. And that's sort of like
they're trying to create those people, but like, I'm saying, like, are we trying to level that up and be like, is the right path to be like, let's actually have contracted employees that are like in each, area?
Is that you inherently increase the cost of startups immensely in terms of scale and going through. And that's what like makes it hard to, like, ideally in the long run, yes, it's what Magic does, right? Like, you have judges, you have whole systems around this, which, like, if you want people to represent the game, then they need to be knowledgeable about the game, right? Like, I don't know how you square that circle, right? And to do that, you give people an incentive to learn or do something about the game, or give them, a product that feels good. It doesn't really matter what it is. I think that incentive model is very helpful for people volunteering their time and going efforts. Again, you get into like the incentive model of like, well, are they doing it just for the reward, or are people doing reviews just because they're getting free product, or because they actually, like the product or the styling going through? Hard to know.
Yeah, I don't have the answers there. Like, I feel in general, like, it's got to be hard for game companies to basically, you have to like get your game into the wild and just go, do we happen to attract the right ambassadors for the game?
Mm-hmm. Do we get the right people? Do we get the right timing? There's a lot of factors that go into whether something's a good idea or not. And you can have a great game and still fail. Yeah.
You can have great games that kickstart fund and then don't actually get made.
Just never made. All sorts of things can happen in between now and then. So I think hopefully we've answered, some questions about how the inner workings of finance, and game design work. And that
we've
even
definitely gotten a little technical for sure.
Yeah. Even in this like slice of the segment, right, of talking about it, there is still topics that we abbreviated to even talk about.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I just because I've been watching like some YouTube videos and stuff, and people are like talking about game design. There's a lot of people who work in the content creation field, like Ryan Farmer, for instance, right, from Strike Better. He has he has a fully funded, successful board game and is working on the next one, right? Like, there's people in the content creation sphere that move to design, and that's always super exciting, and like, I love seeing the success, and like, big shout to Ryan. I have his first game. And but like, there is that kind of discussion of like, how does the individual break into all of it? Right. And there is this uniqueness element, and like, what's different about what you're doing. And I don't know. As just a longtime gamer, it's like, I just want great games. Is that too much to ask, Danny?
It's hard. I mean, this is why for video games mods exists, right? A bunch of changes. Because I think a lot of people have very different opinions at what makes something a game, right? Or what they want out of a game. And it's hard to answer for everyone. But what I like about miniatures games in general is that they're communal by nature. So it requires all of us to get together and agree on what is or is not going on, right? Because playing these games by ourselves isn't very fun.
Yep, definitely agree with you there. Sounds like we're a month out from the errata. To all of the listeners and the viewers, we are not planning on stopping. We like talking about gaming. We are still playing games. We are still rolling dice. We are still painting miniatures. We are not intending to take any sort of break while we wait for the errata. I think Danny and I think I can speak for Danny when I say we are both excited about the errata.
Yeah, it's just summer, right? That's all it is.
Yeah. You got camping to do. We're still thinking about gaming topics. Maybe some of the stuff is a little bit more abstract like this, but this was certainly a topic that I just thought was interesting. And I hope it was it interesting for you to discuss?
It is. Well, what I always say about these topics, and I can't say they're necessarily evergreen per se, but I think it's interesting to revisit these kinds of topics as our feelings change over time. And there's sort of things that come up that are relevant to sort of break into it. And I think for a lot of people, they don't always think about the mechanics of how the game industry works. They're just like, I want good games today. And it's like, well, there's a lot of steps between those 2 points, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just something I find myself thinking about more and more, even just from like a base level aspect of, I apologized to Hungerford the last time I talked to him, and I was like, I remember working with a judge program in Privateer Press, and I think I advocated for things that were like a net result bad for the game, and I didn't understand it at the time, where like now I'm coming to a better understanding of where I need randomness to keep the game adaptive and exciting. And I don't want to play the game that's just memory. I don't want to play chess. There's a reason why I'm not playing chess. I want to play a game where I'm making decisions in the moment, not just remembering what you do in these situations. And you need a degree of randomness for that. And like, I'm coming to understand that a little bit better at my current point. So yeah, I think we're all learning, and I think there's definitely things that we think we want, and then we realize that is not exactly what we want.
Well, maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But everybody wants you, Danny. Everyone needs more Danny all the time. Glorious mustache. I get a special kind of notification from YouTube Studio whenever there's a comment, and it's astonishing how often it's about your mustache.
Well, yeah. I mean, we just got to keep going with this, right? We should make it glorious.
Yeah. Is the mustache long term?
I mean, it is now. It's been a couple of years. Yeah. I used to not have a stash for a very long time. And it's just like, it grew along with me.
Yeah. It's grown on you, you might say. All right, Danny, close us out. Let's wrap up this baby.
The best game is the game that you're playing.
The best game is the game that you're playing. Later, nerds.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex